You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome. I was going to say, that's what she said.
What is it? What did she say? Who is she? And why is she saying stuff all the time?
I don't know.
And why is her mind in the gutter?
We have to ask Michael Scott.
I guess. Well, here we are.
See. Welcome to my casa.
We are. We are in your casa. Technically your basement. Seems like that's a weird way to say basement, huh?
Basement.
Basement.
Yep, just clocked out of work, not too long ago.
Yeah.
Directly above us, actually. That's where the office is.
Yeah. I got off work much earlier. But I actually didn't get home until a little bit later. See, I had looked something up on ChatGPT, and I was reading it, and then I had to go back to work, and then when I got off of work, I sat there and finished reading it, and then I started asking it more questions, and I sat there in the parking lot at work and didn't even leave after work for a while, because I was...
That one will for sure gain you nerd points.
Well,
click up a victory for nerds right there.
Sure, I suppose. You know what? I was asking it about. So here's what I did. I don't remember now what made me decide to do this. I don't remember why this was on my mind, but I was like, "Hey, ChatGPT, could you make a mock debate about homosexuality and the Bible?" And so it was like, sure. And it like made up these characters. One was taking the more traditional, more conservative side. His name was Dr. Evans.
Oh, they gave him names and everything, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then there was a progressive, and it was a lady. I actually can't remember what her name was that they gave her. But yeah, they made up these people and had them debate the topic. I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Like, because there was just, I just have a lot of questions about that still. And so I was just curious. I was curious actually how someone who takes that opposite stance would respond to some of my own questions and critiques. And it's just easier to ask ChatGPT to play that role, I guess, than it is to
right,
find someone you disagree with and find time to get together and talk with them about it.
In good spirit.
In good spirit. Not that I'm opposed to that. Right. It's just like I'm at work and this is easier to do. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, for whatever reason, it was just something that came up today. It's on my mind a little bit. So, and I kept asking it questions and I was like, so see if this one will say to the other one this thing. Like trying to keep it in that debate thing and but sort of tailoring certain one's responses to what I would respond with.
Yeah.
And then seeing what the other side would say to that. And I went back and forth for a while on it. And
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I was thinking there that you probably could have done a debate to where you like set it up beforehand and you were going to play one of the characters and then just have ChatGPT debate you.
Yeah, I guess I could have. Yeah, I started to do it that way, but then I didn't. Because see, the reason I didn't is because I was afraid that it knows me too well already
Yeah,
to where it would like I wanted it to not be basing its responses on something it thought I would agree with or say.
right.
I don't know if that's even possible
It
to
is
avoid that,
funny.
but
I don't know because I not too long ago deleted my ChatGPT chat history, like just completely deleted it,
oh yeah,
and I told it on the before I even deleted it, I told it in the prompt to forget everything I've ever asked it, and then I deleted it.
okay,
Simply because I wanted to see
yeah,
like
yeah,
what how different the responses, and it absolutely gives me different responses now.
really,
Like I can absolutely tell a different, like the tone that this sounds stupid because it's artificial intelligence, but the tone that it speaks to me with is different.
interesting,
So I'm sure that probably it never erases things. Like
yeah,
wink, wink. It probably okay, sure, I forgot it, but I'm
yeah.
sure there's a memory of it somewhere in there. But
Did you hear that ChatGPT is demonic?
I've heard that. Yeah,
Hmm. I heard that today.
I believe I seen a clip from the ninja guys, the guy with the big long beard.
Oh,
He was talking
ninjas
about
or
that.
butterflies?
Yeah, I've seen a little clip of them. They were talking about it a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably the same one that I. So I Andrew actually said something about it at Bible study last night, but he didn't say what it was. He just said that he said something like, "You guys probably want to delete your Chat GPT," and then he said, "Well, except for Sean. Sean's not going to care whenever he finds out why he's not going to care." is kind of how he put it. So then I was like, "Hmm, interesting. I wonder why I specifically wouldn't care. I wonder if it has something to do with like." I thought they were going to say it was like something to do with Antichrist or the mark of the beast or something like, you know, rapture
The
themed, something to go with the something to do with that.
the Velociraptor.
And but no, so then instead of just telling me whenever I asked, because I texted him today and I just asked him like, "Hey, what were you talking about?" And instead of just telling me, he made me go and listen to Take Root's newest episode to find out. But it wasn't until the very end. So I listened to the whole thing, and then at the very end that is when they talked about it. But they were, I think they like played a little clip of a couple clips of folks talking about it, and there was this one guy. Was it? I don't remember. I mean, this was all audio, so I didn't see it. So I'm not sure if it what was what clip. But they were saying like going through this like series of questions that it asked and stuff like that.
That's the one. Yep.
Okay, yeah,
I don't know those guys either. I just occasionally will get when I'm scrolling through TikTok or Reels or something, I'll come across a little clip of their stuff. So I've never listened to a single episode of theirs, but occasionally I'll see clips like that.
which I mean, it is kind of like it is a little creepy the responses it gave, but also like I don't know how much stock do you put in that, you know?
There's a lot of stock you put all around. Like, did he really ask it that questions? I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Mm,
Were the responses tailored, as we were just talking about? It
right?
knows his chat history. Were they tailored
Yeah,
to play up to what he wanted to hear? I mean, like, there's
right.
so many questions to ask.
Yeah, you would almost have to. I mean, even I say have to, as if that's like, oh, well, then you know it's right.
Right.
But like what I was gonna say is, you would have to do what you did, which is like just like tell it to forget everything you know about me, as if that is even a thing,
Right.
and then start fresh. But I don't know. Even then, you know, it's not like you're guaranteed to have some sort of unbiased or I don't even know.
Right.
Like it's I mean it's pulling information from just all over the world, all over the place, I guess. So like where is it even getting these responses from? You know, I don't know. It's kind of silly
Right.
to think about. Like I mean, it's It's possible that there's just people out there writing up conspiracy theories about ChatGPT being demonic and it's pulling from those sources to answer its own questions, you know?
Right.
Like,
I mean, there would be for me, obviously, this the heretic skeptic of us, but there would have to be a lot of things deconstructed in my current worldview for me to even remotely entertain the idea.
right. No, I mean, yeah, I agree. And that's why, I mean, Andrew knows me well enough to know that he told the guys last night that not going to care. He's going to keep using it anyway.
I just thought he meant that because you're having an intellectual affair with ChatGPT.
Oh, is that what this is?
No, I'm just kidding.
Affair seems like harsh.
I was just kidding.
It's it is a very helpful tool though for sure. But I did actually do a little bit of digging and asked it actually about the reliability of the information it gives and all that kind of stuff. And you know, based on its own me asking it that, like, yeah, it was basically like, yeah, fact checked me a lot
Yeah, for sure.
because I'm probably wrong.
Well, the kind of questions
Not
that I
probably, but
the kind of questions that I tend to ask ChatGPT are more just research questions that it's like I'm
right.
not asking it to give me an answer. I'm asking it like like with the topic that we had talked about talking today, Matthew 21 through 16, like, hey, this is like I read it myself and I got my frame of mind of like this is what I'm getting out of it. Now, ChatGPT, are there any sources or writings or commentaries that address this in relation to math, and then it'll pull like
Hmm.
writings from, you know what I mean? So that's just like
Yeah.
it really is just a time saver tool. Like, I sure could I go
Right.
out there and look up all that stuff on myself and find it, but yeah, but I just don't really have the time for that. Like, I can put that in.
Right.
It's gonna give me. Is it gonna give me a comprehensive list? No, but it's gonna like. I
Yeah.
think, and so far from what I can tell, it has done a pretty good job. It's a pretty reliable job of giving me information like that, from what I can tell.
Right. And that's all that I use it for too. And it's for those purposes, I think I find it extremely helpful
Yeah.
and pretty accurate too. Like it's not like it's never just like giving me something that I'm like, wait a second, I know that's not what that scripture says, or it's something kind of weird. It's never
Yeah.
given me anything
I
like
mean, I
that.
have in the past asked it some more like philosophical questions that weren't so much like, what does this person write about this, but just like, based on my understanding of time and this, then what would be the implications of this? And then it'll give me a response, but I also, I know what I'm asking it. Like, I take that with a grain of salt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't give that the same sort of credence as I would just asking it for resources or like look up information for me. You know what I mean?
Right. Basically, just don't be a dummy when you use it, and you're fine.
Yeah. I'll just ask it questions like that to try to help me shift my paradigm some. Like it's so easy to get trapped into a certain way of looking at something that you can't see it another way until somebody like illuminates that for you or something illuminates that for you. So sometimes I'll ask it questions to like challenge myself. It's almost like a like rebut me. Like this is where my mind's at. Now push back against me. Tell me why I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Like something to help me see things through a different light. So
Yeah. 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 Actually, that gave me an idea for something I would like to ask it.
you're
some,
welcome.
some other point. But yeah, in particular about the nature of time, I would like to present present an argument and see if it would give me rebuttals, whatnot to that. Anywho, are we talking about Matthew 20?
That's what we were talking about. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about.
My head was in a completely different space when I suggested that,
Yeah,
but I
that's what I
don't
figured.
but I don't care to talk about it as well. Um,
I can talk about it. The thing is, it was your topic, first of all, so my head was never there to begin with. And
right.
also, yeah, my head hasn't been really on anything that's relevant to this show. So,
It was, I mean, it's not like it's completely irrelevant to everything else I've been thinking about.
yeah.
Like, it's, I was I started a couple books, a couple audiobooks. One is The Relentless Tenderness of Jesus by Brennan Manning, and the other is Beauty Will Save the World by Brian Zahnd. And by the way, it's when I was listening to The Relentless Tenderness of Jesus of Brennan Manning, it was pretty evident to me that like a lot of people that we listen to have been really influenced by this guy.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
even some of the phrases he uses and everything.
isn't that the guy that wrote the Ragamuffin Gospel?
Yes.
Yeah, that's see, I have that book on my shelf. That's when you sent that, and I told you I know I have a Brennan Manning on my shelf. I was pretty sure it was that one. Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people like talk about that book particularly. Like that's one.
Yeah. Because there was even, I think it was, I don't, hopefully I'm not wrong here. I'm not misquoting or misremembering, but I'm pretty sure I've heard Malcolm Smith talk about God's isness
Yes. Yep. I've
before,
heard that.
and I'm pretty sure he's getting that from Brennan Manning as well.
I actually don't know anything about that guy. So
I don't know a ton about him either. I've just heard his name a lot.
the
And
whole reason why I have his book on my shelf is because it was one of those like I'll go to Second and Charles and just comb through the books looking for names I know, and I seen the Ragamuffin Gospel, and that's one I for sure had heard people talk about. So I was
yeah,
like, well, I'm gonna get this one, but I haven't read it yet. I haven't got to it. I just haven't had the time.
yeah.
It's gonna take me 19 years to read that Chris Green book I'm reading. So
How's that going, by the way?
I mean, it's going good. It's been a good read, but it's the way he writes is. I mean, he's a good writer, but it's one of those that like I'm gonna have like. There's been several sections where I'll read the whole thing, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just read? I have to go back and read the whole thing. It's already like 400 pages, but by the time you double read every page, that's
Mm.
800 pages.
Right. Yeah, I've had to do that. I had to do that several times with his sanctifying interpretation.
And it's kind of a good like it speaks a good thing for him because a lot of what I while that happens a lot to me is he'll write something in there that sparks a thought in my mind. It's like it's like a creative thought,
Yep.
like something. Oh, like I'd never viewed something through this paradigm before, or I'd never thought about this before. But then my eyes continue to read, but my brain is still thinking about that last thing he said, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'll get like a page in, and I'm like, I don't even know what I just read on the last page.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually need to go back and reread Sanctifying Interpretation. I did start rereading Surprised by God just because it was a shorter one and like I really kind of have to read things multiple times to retain much of it.
Yeah,
But I also don't make enough time to read. So then it takes me forever to actually read something and then reread it and retain anything.
right.
So I do better with audio,
I
it seems like.
what I found is I actually do pretty good about retaining stuff, at least stuff that. So, like when I'm going to write my essay at the end of the semester or the end of the class, I know what I'm writing about, and then I know I read this. It'll go with this. It was from this book, but I can't remember. Like I never obviously can remember where it's at in the book. So then, that's why anything I even remotely think I'm going to use, I'll try to highlight, and that way I can kind of skim through all the highlighted sections that I've used in the book.
Right.
But I'm usually pretty good about remembering. So that does tell me that I remember at least the stuff that's applicable.
Yeah. Man, I love so much of what Chris Green has that I've read of his that like you were talking about the highlights and like I've almost highlighted the entire book of like the Lenten homilies that he did. Man, what was that called now? Being transfigured or something like that. Um, yeah, I think that's what it was. But and like almost that entire thing is just highlighted. There's certain sermons or homilies in there that for real, there's like maybe a paragraph of the entire thing that I didn't end up highlighting by the time I went back and looked at it.
Yeah. I try to be a little more selective just because I know the whole reason why I'm doing that is so I can easily find it later. So
Yeah,
there's probably a whole lot of other good stuff that could be highlighted, but I just
yeah,
for sake of usability,
yeah.
I do like the. I am finding so far I'm about 100 pages in, maybe a little over 100 pages. and he's kind of started at the beginning and is working his way through Genesis basically at this point. So I just finished the section that he read, or I don't know if I finished it actually or not, or I was towards the end, but I didn't finish it. I can't remember, but it was about the section about Joseph.
Mm.
And but I mean, I do really like the paradigm that he shows through some of those Old Testament things. I find it to be a little more useful than at least the lessons and interpretations that I was taught growing up.
Right.
You know, and he's at least in that Joseph section, he did a really good job of kind of breaking down. Like, I mean, he went pretty deep into the history of some of the stuff with like uh, the British Israeli theology, which is sort of like a precursor to Christian nationalism, American
Mm.
Christian Zionism.
Yeah. Right.
But he goes through that whole thing, and then talks about like some of the like white supremacy stuff that was inserted into the
Mm-hmm.
and so he goes pretty deep into the history of some of the interpretations, specifically the Joseph story, and kind of talks about how which anybody that's grown up, I would say evangelical, but particularly some of the Pentecostal charismatic, will
Mm-hmm.
be very familiar with Joseph as the Christ figure, right? And he does check a lot of the boxes, but like
Right.
he gives sort of an alternative, and it's not his. I mean, like not to take away from him. I mean, it is his, but he is admittedly building on.
Yeah.
Cites sources and all this. It's not
Mm-hmm.
his original, you know,
Yeah.
completely. He's built upon others, as all of us have, but sort of showing the faults of Joseph that seem to be glossed over in the and really we do that a lot, I think, with Old Testament characters. We just sort of we've talked about that before, actually, about some of the heroes of the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
not just Old Testament characters, but especially Old Testament characters. About
Right.
like we want to read them in this through rose-colored glasses, right? Even their faults, we sort of, I mean, like if you really read David, the story, like the David stuff, he's, yeah, I mean, he did some awesome stuff, but he also did some super crappy stuff, and like
Right.
like nobody denies that, but it almost does get glossed over just because of his he's so associated, the man after God's heart, right? So it gets
Yeah.
glossed over so easily. I think that we do that a lot with all the characters in the Bible, and
Right.
it's kind of nice. Like I find it more applicable. It makes it more applicable to us to show that they're not any more than just regular human beings who made good decisions, made bad decisions, sometimes made terrible decisions, you know,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we're all have made bad decisions and we'll make more bad decisions. So if these people didn't, then they're no example to us. It's useless to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that perspective of it.
Right. Yeah.
He really one of the really good things he said about that section was how it's really easy to see the Joseph story and how things turned out and see it as a positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he frames the whole thing from a negative because, like, when he, not the whole thing, but
Right.
when Pharaoh asks for the interpretation of his dream, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty striking that Joseph never seeks God's guidance in an interpretation. He just immediately is like, "Oh, I know what this means." And if I'm remembering it correctly, he basic like what he it turned out okay, but in the end, what it actually led to was the enslavement of the Hebrew people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if he would have sought the counsel of God, perhaps what he would have been told was what was later given in Scripture, which is you plant for 7 years. You allow the poor and the homeless and the widows to take the edges of the field, and then that seventh year you allow the land to rest. Maybe there would have never been a famine in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
So it's one of those things like we don't but it doesn't say that. But who reads books like that? Who reads stories to where it's just like, well, it doesn't say that. Well, no, I mean, it doesn't say that, but that's part of literature. Yeah, right? Like,
Yeah. It's that attention to. It's that sort of like being willing to wrestle with the text. And when I say wrestle, I mean that. Like, ask questions of it and, like, think, should Joseph have done this differently? Like, is the like we always assume, like you were saying, it's not just that we assume these people are the good guys and forget their faults. It's that we assume everything that's said and done is approved by God, that it went down how it should have in the story. And
Right.
like whenever it's those things like that that maybe we should question, and it's maybe in that question that we actually find what the story was trying, an element at least of what the story was trying to tell us in the first place.
Right.
But if you just assume that everything in there is exactly um like everything is signed off on
Right.
by God, and
Endorsed.
yes, endorsed, and everything, all these characters are perfect characters, and well, Joseph seems to fit the bill of a Christ-like figure, so obviously he can't do anything wrong. Like, yeah, there's if you make all those assumptions and you limit what the scriptures can do.
Right. I especially like that story because of the contrast between, like, what did Joseph tell the Pharaoh to do? He basically told him to hoard stuff, right? To stockpile it all up
Yeah,
because a famine's coming. So just
right.
hoard as much as you can hoard, right?
Yeah,
Greed.
yeah,
Hoard up as
right.
much as you can, but
Yeah,
like the actual, like, laws that are given later for how to reap and sow from the land is all about making sure that the poor and needy are taken care of, and also
right.
the land itself, creation, gets a rest. Like,
Yeah,
it's not about hoarding up at all.
right. Yeah,
So that makes it even more applicable, because if you read it that other way, it's almost like, no, God is definitely endorsing you should hoard up as much worldly stuff as you can,
yeah,
because there's going to be a time when it's going to be taken away. So hoard up as much as you can now.
right.
But like, that's, if you try to read that critically, that's a contradiction from what we're later told, and at God as he's revealed in Jesus, right? That's a
Mhm.
contradiction.
Yeah,
But if you read it critically like that, it doesn't have to be a contradiction, right? That, like, it makes it more alive, at least in my
right.
perspective.
Yeah,
It makes it more relevant. It it certainly helps me as somebody who tends to read it critically anyway. It certainly helps me.
yeah. Yeah, but that's why I say I'll have said and say all the time, and it's really just it's because of Chris and folks like him that I've come to believe that. Like we're not good readers of of the scriptures. Like we don't read it as with the kind of care and attention that is needed, I think, to really get get the good stuff out of it that's there for us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't even think it's necessarily only applicable to scripture. I think we're just bad readers. And we're bad at that sort of thinking. Like, even, like, if you notice the movies, I'm a little bit, like, touchy on this, I guess, or sensitive to it, because I went to movie school. Like, that's one part of, what I did, is had to watch classic movies and write papers on them and critique them. But, like, a lot of the movies now are just freaking mind numb. There's
Right.
no deeper meaning to it. It's like, so whenever we get to, you can ask Kelly about this, we'll be watching a movie and it actually has something in it, like some substance to it. Like, I'm like, this is what he's actually, now I'll just tell her, like, this is what the movie's actually about. Like, it's, but like, we're just numb to that in our world today. We're bad with movies. That's why all like the popular movies are just bombs and action, and it's just like, it's not that there's anything wrong with that, because that can be a good part of a good story too, but it's just that, you know what I mean? Like, how
Right.
big can we make the explosions, how incredible can we make the stunts, right? Like, it's the same with, I'm a big pro wrestling guy. I don't really like pro wrestling today, because, like, even though the athletes are 10 times better, the stuff they do is 10 times more amazing. It's not as good storytelling. That's what wrestling always was to me. Like, it was, you would have the giant guys. I remember going back not all that long ago and watching, I think it was like Earthquake, John Tenta versus Hulk Hogan. So
Hmm.
Hulk Hogan was like 6'8", 300 at the time. John Tenta was like a former sumo wrestler. He was also like 6'8". He was like 450 pounds or something, like a giant dude.
Right.
He moved like what you would expect a 6'8", 400-pound man to move like. Not very agile,
Right.
not super quick. Today's fans that love today's wrestling would be bored to death by him. But he was such a good storyteller because he was a monster and he knew like every move he did was intentional. Like every slam he did, it wasn't rushed to like, let me hurry up and do this so I can jump to the top rope and do 10 flips. And it was like, no, I'm a 6'8", 400-pound man and I'm slamming another man. This hurts. Like it was every single step he took, he emphasized his monstrosity. Like
Mm,
it was a character that's missing in today's world. Like I feel like we just don't have as much of that. Like all
yeah.
around, you know?
Yeah. There's a. I do think that there, and this is actually comes back around to some of the things we've talked about with ChatGPT before. We think we are kind of. I don't know if I want to say it like that or not. What I was going to say is like losing some of our creativity.
Yeah.
Or I don't think that it's lost though. That's why I don't know if I want to use that language. It's not that
Right.
it's lost, but I think that it's just not. We're not using it. Maybe we don't have as many.
Right.
Maybe we don't recognize the need for it as much anymore, or something.
Yeah, it's just harder. Well, and I don't know if it's harder to come by or we just have so much more access to stuff. Because even like my mind goes to cinema and like there is so much just mindless entertainment on TV and cinema, but sometimes they're still making good stuff, dude. Like
Yeah,
I think the one that we watched not too long ago was The Woman in the Yard, The Lady in the Yard, something
yeah,
like that. Loved it. So good. Like the underlying story behind like it's easy to get distracted by this like the supernatural stuff because it's a horror movie, right?
hmm,
But like no, it's just like it's only a horror movie with like supernatural stuff on the appearance. It's a psychological movie. Like it's telling a story about what's going on inside of someone. You know what I mean? Like
hmm,
it's still there. They're still making movies like that, but we're so
yeah,
to your point about just being bad at reading scripture. We're bad at noticing stuff like that. Like
yeah. I don't know what the cause of it is, or I don't even know how to diagnose it, or what we would even say about it. But I do recognize that it does seem like there's. I mean, part of it is that I think that we're just so bombarded with entertainment all the time that we don't need to use our imaginations
right.
much for anything. Like I was thinking about that the other day. I think it was in that book. It might have been in the Brian Zahn book, "Beauty Will Save the World." Somewhere I was listening to someone talk about something, and they were talking about. They mentioned like being childlike and how you can like. Did that move the camera?
I don't know. I did kick it, but
I think that moved it a little bit.
let me slide it back your way. There we
All
go.
right, all right. But like, and I really resonated with this because like, but they were talking about like what being a kid and like just having like you don't even have to have like any like you didn't even have to have anything. You could just have a backyard and use your imagination and create this whole other world like Narnia type, like and it's like if you're creative enough and you had enough imagination, you didn't have to have anything. You could just create your whole world and spend the whole day
Yeah,
outside just kind of using your imagination,
yeah,
you know? Like I remember doing stuff like that when I was a kid. I'd like created like entire movies and played them out in my head, like just in my imagination and like using stuff in the yard and stuff.
yeah. I mean, me and my brother did it with the little wrestling action figures. You know, like we
Yeah.
had a whole wrestling federation. We always it was like a continuous story day to
Yeah.
day. You know, like we had our champions, and today we got a big championship match coming up. Like there was a storyline behind the whole thing, and like it was well thought out. You know.
Yeah. But like most of the kids today, yeah, see, they just have like a phone in their hands and it's like they're watching other people be creative rather than being creative themselves. And I don't know what kind of effect that's going to have. I don't think it's going to have, because I do think that going back to the scriptures, I do think that is a big problem that we
Yes,
face is that
absolutely.
we've lost that we don't, I think part of it is we don't feel that we have permission given like more modern structures kind of enforced on us of like inerrancy and stuff
And
like
let me
that.
throw in another word to add on top of that: fear.
Yeah, and fear because we're we have that fear of like, well, you have to read it this way or you're wrong, and if you're wrong, you're going to hell.
Right.
So
The consequences are pretty high.
right. So like we don't feel like we have permission to read the scriptures creatively or imaginatively,
Right.
but that's exactly how we're supposed to read them, I think.
Well, and I'll tell you, for me, another thing that comes to my mind with this is time. And I say that because just for my own, like where I'm at today reading the scriptures, if I just read through something for the sake of reading it, it's hard to get anything past just that literalistic face value. But to really get like what I think you should get out of it, I have to read it. I have to think about it. I have to read it again. I have to think about it some more. I have to go ask ChatGPT some questions. Maybe do a Google search.
Yeah.
Read it again. Then I'm like, okay, now I think I'm getting somewhere with it. Like,
Right.
but that's not the way we read it. Like it's
It should be though, I
it
think.
should be, yes, but I just think it's a combination of things, right? Like time is of a premium right now in our lives. We're all so busy. We're all bombarded so much. We don't have time to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or we don't take the time. We don't make the time. We don't prioritize the time.
But man, we have to. That's something that I really am passionate about. I feel like for the future of the church has to do that. We have to make the time to read scripture well, and we need to learn how to do it first of all, and then we need to make the time to actually do it.
That's one of the big things I took away actually from when we did the year read through of the whole Bible as our men's group at church. And I'm not poo pooing on it. I'm glad that we did it. It was a good thing to do.
Right.
But we got like part of the way through it, and I realized I'm not getting much out of this, like theologically, because in order to get from Genesis 1 to the end of Revelation in a year, there are days you just got to read, man. I don't have
Yeah,
time
yeah.
to go back and read it. I don't have time to ask the questions, to do the Google searches, to dig into
Hmm.
what I'm reading. Because if I'm going to read this thing, some days I've just got to read it and move on.
Yeah.
And especially when you get to like, I specifically remember being in Revelation, being like, we're already in December. This is the end of and I'm getting nothing out of this. So,
Yeah. So we had to take a little pause.
yep, had a siesta.
Um, but we're back. We were talking about how we're terrible readers of scripture.
Yeah. How it takes time that we don't have.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And imagination and creativity and all
Exactly.
of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But you were talking about the read through in the year and how like we end up settling for our first reading more often than not.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of that quote from Chris Green that more and more I think he's dead on with it. And but he said that um the I'm trying to remember how he worded it. Basically, your first reading's always wrong. The
That's simple
plain
enough. Yeah.
the plain reading is almost always wrong.
Yeah.
But that's all that we end up settling. We end up settling more often than not. We end up settling for the plain meaning. We'll read something through one time, and even things that because like sometimes you'll read through something and you'll be like, well, this seems to make sense. But even then, I don't think we should settle for that reading.
Right. And more, I don't know. I mean, this isn't a question I've thought about a whole lot, so I don't want to like make some sort of definitive statement here, but just off the cuff, I'm not so sure that I believe there is a right reading. Like,
I think there are right readings.
right. I think that there's a right way to read it. That's not going to mean the same thing to you that it means to me. It's not going to mean the same thing to us as it means to someone in Zambrano, Honduras. It's not going to mean the same to them
Right.
as someone who lived in Ireland and the 1500s. I mean, it's just not like I don't know that I believe that there is a right reading so much as there's good readings or right readings. Which again, that's just off the cuff, so I don't know. I mean, there may be. I think that initially some people are immediately going to push back against that and be like, "Well, there are some things that are this is for sure what it means, right? Like particularly about the prophecies of Jesus or whatever." And even that, I'm initially not so sure that that's all they're saying,
Right.
but
Yeah, I think that there's a plethora of good
yeah,
readings of pretty much any scripture. Um, but there that isn't to say that there aren't any bad ones, you know.
yes, absolutely, 100%. And that's why
There's
I
a
was
few
trying to
bad ones.
emphasize about like when I say good reading of or good readings, I don't even necessarily mean the outcome because I think that they're going to be applicable to people in the future that I could never even imagine because I don't live in the future. You know what I mean? And like they were applicable to people in the past in ways I could never understand because that's not my lived experience. But I think it's more about the way we read them. There are bad ways to read them and there are good ways to read them. And I don't think that we'll always get the same meaning from good ways of reading them,
Mhm.
but the way we read them are similar. Good readings, good way to approach them.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think the easiest way to know that is you shall know them by their fruit, right? What kind of fruit does it lead to?
Yeah.
Sure, you can pull verses out of the Bible to use to discriminate against people, but is that a good reading of Scripture? It may be the plain reading, even, but is that a good reading?
Yeah.
It may be the literal reading, but is it a good reading? Like,
Hmm. Yeah. I'm with you on all that. Speaking of reading and good readings and bad readings, do we want to talk about the parable
we can.
that we talked about talking about
Do you want to
this
talk
week?
about the parable?
I think so.
Let's talk about it. I told you, man. If whatever topics that we get on is no pressure, but it's all pressure on you because have nothing for us.
I feel no pressure.
Good. I like that.
We're just flowing. If we get to say some of the other things I wanted to talk about, it's fine. If not, it's fine. Um, so the one that I had, like I was saying earlier, my mind was in a little bit of a different place then, but I do think that it's something worth talking about still. It's the parable of the laborers in the vineyard from Matthew 20. I believe it's through verse 18
Yeah, it's 1
or
through 16.
16.
Yeah.
Okay.
What version are you reading out of?
NRSV.
All right.
For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. About 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us?" who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat? But he replied to one of them, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first and the first will be last. And I heard something pretty interesting about this week, and then I looked it up to try to verify if it was right or not. And I'd heard that the folks, this kind of just adds an extra little layer to the already, you know, obviously good meaning in the parable. But so the folks that would gather in the marketplace, that there was like, this was like a thing that people did every day, like day laborers, day workers, and they would go and um, so the later in the day you get, the more desperate the people there would have been. But also, another element to that is that you're talking about these same people that show up every day. So people know them. Like people that had a good reputation would have been hired first.
Right.
People that other people had worked with before and they knew the quality of their work, they would hire them first. And then, but like people that were old, decrepit, uh, maybe they had a reputation for being lazy, different, whatever it is, folks that would have been chosen last for a reason.
Right.
They were, um, even they were hired and they received the same wage.
Right.
So that I thought was a really cool little extra element to the story, because not only is it giving the people that came in last and worked the same wage, but these were the undesirables. These were the ones that where they were picked last, right? Like no one else wanted them.
Right. Which is, isn't it just, again, that's another one of those things that doesn't say that. Well, no,
Right.
but like it's kind of common sense. Even like I know
Yeah.
that you said you looked it up and verified it and all that, but even just, I mean, that's a good thing to do. But even just common sense, like if you're looking to hire somebody and
Yeah.
you've got somebody built like Brock Lesnar standing there, or you've got
Right.
some person with a gimpy little Mo with a gimpy leg, which one are you going to hire for physical labor? Like it's
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
common sense. The ones that are left over are probably going to be the ones that nobody wants to hire in the first place. I mean,
Yeah. And of course, those are going to be the folks that are the most desperate because they're dependent upon that money, you know?
yeah,
Because if you're a day laborer like that, that means you're actively seeking work out
yeah,
day in and day out. That means you if you don't work that day, you don't make any money that day,
right. Your
you know?
family may not eat that day.
Exactly. So the later in the day you get, the more desperate those folks would have been. And, whenever he asked them, why are you standing here? Because no one hired us. It's not that they were unwilling, but no one wanted them.
Yeah,
But the landowner, he does.
right.
You know,
I don't know if it's just the English translation of it or not, but I found that section of it to be pretty I don't know, almost hidden humor in a way because he's let me see where it says about 5 o'clock he went out and found others standing around and he said to them, why are you standing here idle all day? So it's like, what do you mean? Why am I standing here idle all day? Well, nobody's hired me. Like, but the implication is like, well, why are you waiting for somebody to hire you? Go put yourself to work. Like, go do something. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, why are you standing here idle all day? Like, what kind of silly question is that to ask? Why do you think I'm standing here? But it is
yeah.
almost like, well, why didn't you just come and start working at the vineyard? Like, her gates are never shut.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, um, I kind of, so I got a couple of different things out of it. The first thing I got out of it was like in the context of what he's immediately says preceding this at the end of chapter 19 is basically where the rich young ruler comes to ask him what he needs to do, and Jesus tells him to sell all of his stuff and follow him, and then he does it. And then he says it's easier for, a camel to
Yeah.
pass through the eye of a needle. It goes through that whole thing. And then immediately following that, Peter asks him, well, we've been with you since the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and we've given everything to follow you. So what will we be given? And then that's where chapter 19 ends.
Right.
And then he goes immediately into this parable. And so, in that context, what it sort of made me realize is like, or at least what I was getting out of it at the time, was that the actual payoff isn't the denarii that they're paid.
Right.
It's the fruit of the vineyard. The the denarii is just taking care of their daily needs, right? Because Jesus said earlier in the same book, it's Matthew chapter 5 or chapter 6, Sermon on the Mount, do not even the sparrows are fed and they don't work, they don't labor. You know what I mean? Like your
Yeah.
needs are going to be taken care of. That's all this denarii is for. Like you're worried about me giving you 2 denarii instead of 1. Like this is not the treasure that you're working for. The real treasure is the fruit of the vineyard that you're working in. Like
Yeah.
that's where your reward is. It's not about the earthly treasure. It's not about getting extra pay. It's about the fruit of the vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting thought. And then I also thought about the something actually I said to you the other, well, I thought about you because we were talking about where you ran the other day, and your initial reaction was like sort of like, well, it was way slower than it should have been, and I walked, and all this, and I was like, man, comparison is the thief of joy, right? Like if you're always worried about what everybody else is doing, you're never going to be happy. You know what I mean? But it's about yourself, man. Like it's not about comparing ourselves to other people. Who cares what this other person, who cares what you've been given? I could spend my time just bummed out about why is Sean given musical talent the way that you have been. You know what I mean?
Right.
Why? Well, I don't know, but like I've got my own stuff. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to compare myself to you in that way. I don't need to compare myself to anybody. Like that's all the
Right.
only thing that's good for is sucking the joy out of life, and it just
Yeah.
shows you worried about things that ultimately aren't even important. And really, I mean, obviously from someone who thinks more in a non-dual manner, to me this is just a parable that kind of upholds that. It's like you're not, once you understand, that the barriers between us fall. It's not about like what do I have compared to what this person has. It's what do we have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're all in this thing together. We're all one. Like ultimately, I think that I personally think that we all come from one spark of consciousness that I would call ground of being that I would call God. You know what I mean? So it's not about what you have and what I don't. Like it's what we have collectively. It's no different. So
Right.
I don't know. That's just some initial thoughts.
And until you recognize Christ in all, you're going to continue to do things like that.
Right.
Be angry that your brother has this and you don't, or that people you don't think deserve, which is actually where my mind went with this, is like it was scandalous then and it's scandalous now, the grace shown to all, you know, to, because that's where my mind went with all of this was like, and I don't know. There's specific examples we could give. I don't know if we want to go there or not, but the idea that those people don't deserve this.
Right.
Like, look at what I'm doing. I'm the one out here working all day, and they're getting the same pay as me.
Sounds very older brother from the prodigal son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a theme in a lot of Jesus' parables. But we're still offended. It was offensive then, and it's offensive now. God is so gracious that we're offended by it, and we want to we relentlessly, I think, try to find ways to excuse that, to not read these passages in that way, and to try to justify you know, our own seeking to justify ourselves, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, in the context of love your neighbor as yourself, like if I'm complaining about you getting paid the same that I get paid, am I really loving you? That's sort of elevating myself, right?
Right.
Above you, like I deserve more. I've earned more. I should
Right.
be placed above you, in order of importance, in order of what I receive as a reward. Like that's literally as literal as it comes to not loving your neighbor as yourself, right? I mean,
Right.
which ultimately that's what I think sin is. I guess the kind of the quirky definition that I use to define sin is just any time that I put my own needs, wants, and desires above the needs, wants, and desires of others. Like it's to not, which is just a fancy way of saying not loving your neighbor as yourself. I mean,
Yeah. And man, all of this stuff really does tie in together because I'll tell you where my mind was whenever this came up the other day. I'll just be real honest about it. I heard a comment the other day at work from somebody, and it was the cliche like people are lazy people are gaming the system and making, getting paid money that my money that I'm paying in taxes is going to these people that are lazy and it's just like and this was a guy that it was funny because in the same conversation and this was just I overheard this conversation. I have no idea if this person will ever hear this or not, but um it was they were talking about the gospel. They were talking about Christianity. And in the same conversation, and I was just like, this parable came to mind immediately. And then I heard he talked about it. Brennan Manning talks about it in the relentless tenderness of Jesus too. And it's like, man, how do we not see? And of course, he wasn't really tying it to the politics and taxes and all the things that I was,
right,
but he was talking about just how scandalous God's grace is and how we are still so offended by it that God would view someone who, again, that's why the context of that hit me so hard. Like these folks they probably got a bad reputation for being lazy. There's a reason, like, if they're not like handicapped or have some like physical ailment, something that would make them not physically good workers or would produce less than others, um, then it's probably because they just have a bad reputation for doing shoddy work or being lazy.
right.
And but they got the same pay and they worked almost it was at the very end of the day they worked almost no time
Yeah,
and got paid for it. And it's that same spirit of of like legalism, the mixture of law and grace and all of that. It's all of that, and it's a I mean what I would call an antichrist spirit. That's like because
I mean that's exactly what it says in First John.
yeah,
Like the Antichrist spirit is that's not rooted in love of neighbor. I mean,
right. Yeah. Yeah, and how can you love your neighbor and view them in that way? I don't know. And I don't know, that's not going to win me any popularity contest from the people that listen to this podcast, but it is what it is, man. I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do with a lot of Jesus' teachings
right.
and still view things that way.
I mean, that's I don't want to because I don't want to pretend like I've got it all figured out and I'm right. But like that's why I say when I say like my political views, are I think are the more Christ-like one. Like that my view of Christ's teachings is what I use to inform like my views. But it's contrary to apparently 80 some odd percent of evangelical Christians, you know what I mean? And I've been told that my whole life, like that, no, if you're Christian, it's going to be right wing, conservative, blah 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 blah, and it's like, man, I don't. And I maybe there's a way to like. I'm not trying to turn it into the left leaning politics is the way to do it, man. Like you have you all have your own politics,
Yeah.
so be it, whatever. But all I'm saying is like what you're hitting on is exactly what I've been trying to say for my entire adult life.
Right.
It's like no, I don't see how you match these up with the teachings of Jesus. I just don't. I don't understand. My mind, it does not compute in my mind. Like it's not like if you're complaining about people on welfare or people who don't deserve it getting food stamps or I work my butt off and these people are living just as good as me. Well, like, I mean, if that's really your stance, I don't know how you validate that with being a Christian and like actually trying to live the teachings of Jesus. I can't compute it. I don't understand it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I'm not like wouldn't consider myself to be left leaning necessarily. I'm neither, I would say.
Yeah.
But but I do see that like the same thing you're saying though. Like I don't understand some of the things I just don't understand how we can say these things out of one side of our mouth, but then talk about Jesus and what you can and like what would Jesus do and
Right.
and all this kind of stuff and
Which that takes us into a whole nother direction, man, because that's one of my big critiques, really, or at least my internal critiques. It's not like I'm going around grandstanding or anything, but about where we stand, I say where American evangelical Christianity stands today is because it doesn't matter what you do. It's not about all about what you believe. As long as you believe the right things, it doesn't matter. So, like, sure, you should do good, try your best. But, like, that doesn't do anything. Like no one is motivated by that. Like to just it doesn't matter, but yeah, you should try your best. Like okay, well then it's not important. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like that's way down on the pecking order. It's all become about just believe those right doctrines, believe the right things,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then everything else that you do to live out those teachings is just the only reason why you would do those, so you feel good, makes you feel good, do the right thing.
And that really brings us kind of back around to what I have been, where my mind has been the last couple of days, and like I kind of had this, I don't know, epiphany is not too strong of a word probably, but like a revelation, a realization.
What is one level down from an epiphany?
Epiphania. Um, but yeah, like the something that hasn't. So like we've talked a lot in the past, and different folks in the circles that folks that we listen to and whatnot, talk about the lie of separation, right?
Hmm.
And for a while now, that's kind of it hasn't been sitting just right with me.
Right.
Like, not that I don't believe that there is a lie of separation, but I don't know that I've for a while now I've suspected that there's actually something deeper than that, something that goes beyond that is more at the heart or the root of what we call the fall. Versus that, like there is the separate there is a separation in our minds that's that life separation is real. But I've been just kind of like for a long time kind of been suspecting that there's maybe something even beyond that that's at the root, that's maybe even the source of that separation, of that lie. And like maybe there's a lie supporting that lie. Maybe we could say. And so this is really stupid actually, but this is just how my mind works. Um, you all right?
It was the telemarketer and then spam back to back.
Oh, so I kind of like was preaching to myself all day. Tuesday. People probably thought I was nuts.
Speak to yourself in psalms and hymns.
Yeah. But I was kind of like, I don't know if anyone else's brain works this way or not, but like kind of imagining how I would respond to certain questions that were asked of me. Like about like how to read Old Testament passages that are hard to read, like how I would respond to that if someone asked me that. And then like about the problem of evil and atonement and all these things. And through this whole thing of like kind of in my head, sort of like thinking through that and how I would respond to all of that, and kind of actually like having the discussion in my head, which makes me a little bit of a crazy person, I'm sure. But
I just thought everybody talked to themselves in their head, but apparently some people don't have an internal monologue. That's what I've heard.
I don't know.
I'm not one of those people. Let me tell you that. I got always got voices going on over there.
Yeah, I have wanted. Maybe I should look into that and see like if that is a thing that everybody does, or most, or like, am I? Are we weird?
Oh, I'm definitely weird.
Well, I mean,
Maybe not for that reason, but I'm definitely weird.
yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that is a thing that I do,
Yeah.
and that's what I was doing on, well, yesterday morning. I didn't really listen to much of anything yesterday until later on in the afternoon. And so
I can tell you for sure I do that. Like when I say that I'm running and I can't even listen to podcasts because my mind is that's what I'm it's exactly what's happening. So
we've got at least one more person
yeah.
then. So I was this theme just kept coming up, and I've especially when I was thinking about the atonement and how I might answer that, because there's so many different levels of the atonement. I don't know that we can really grasp the fullness of what it means for how Jesus at ones us, you know.
Right.
But one thing that I for sure think is happening at the cross, that culminates at the cross, is God earns our trust. And that kind of just like hit me. And I was like, whoa. Like, and that was a common theme that come up in my own monologue in my head about answering these questions about how to read the scriptures well. I think it requires a trust in God as revealed in Jesus. You have to trust that this is really who God is, and allow that to transform the way you read the scriptures, include like especially the Old Testament, those hard passages to read in the Old Testament. Like, well, there has to be a trust in God that this is like. I think that we have fear. I think a lot of us, whenever we read those passages, we're afraid that God. We're like, I think some of us avoid even reading those passages or don't know what to do with them because we're like afraid that maybe God's not as good as we think He is. Like maybe God's not. Maybe God is the one who tells Moses that it's okay for the Israelites to basically rape these virgin girls and kill these baby boys. Maybe that is who God is. Like going back to the Numbers
Yeah.
31
Yeah.
thing we just talked about. Like I think part of our problem, even reading scripture, is I think there's a lot of fear that we still have because we don't trust God.
So much fear. So much is rooted in fear.
Yeah. And it just reminded me of like, and that's what the problem of evil too. It's like I think part of the reason the, there is no theodicy. Theodicy is a fool's errand. I don't know that we're not going to solve the problem of evil. I don't think we can solve the problem of evil. But what we can do is look at Jesus and trust God because He's revealed Himself in this person, Jesus. And who Jesus reveals God to be is someone trustworthy. We can trust Him. And so that, I was thinking about that. And then I was thinking about the atonement. And I was thinking about, if you go back to the garden, the the lie that the serpent told was like, God is holding out on you. they the original lie caused a distrust.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the way Baxter Kruger frames it.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
So he causes a distrust between, and that causes the separation. It's the distrust. It's not just the lie that we're separated from God. We separate ourselves and our minds from God because we don't trust him.
Yep. That is 100% exactly the framing of Jesus and the undoing of Adam.
Hmm.
The fall. It's that I can't remember the exact wording he uses. I've actually quoted it twice in two different papers because I liked it that much. But it's about before the lie entered, before that the quote unquote fall or whatever language you want to use around
Right.
that, in the story, the main thing that they had was that confidence, that trust, and that's what the thing that was attacked, right? Like
Right.
maybe God is withholding something, but because going back to the story, there they're made in the image of God. There's nothing that has to be done to make you more like God. You are literally made in the image of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that inkling of doubt that like, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe there's something else I have to do to become like God.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. I'm with you. That's I'd have to pull it up. I don't have my Kindle down here now, but
So I've never read it before, but I have heard him talk about it before. And maybe he's actually said this. I just don't remember it. But it just kind of clicked with me as I was thinking through all this stuff the other day. That like,
yeah.
I think that there is a lie of separation, but I think that even that lie is rooted in the lie that we can't trust God. We we believe that we can't trust Him, and that kind of also helped me to put a new perspective on the cross, even and when we talk about Jesus at wanting us, like part of what I think that means is that He is showing us through His life, through His teaching, in culminating at His death, that we can trust God. We can trust Him. He is trustworthy. I think that that is a theme that runs through basically all of His teaching. Going back to what you said earlier about like, don't worry about tomorrow, man. You can trust Him.
Yeah.
And like, if the laborers in the vineyard trusted Him, trusted that He was actually good, that He wasn't withholding something from them, trusted that He was just and
Right.
fair. If they really trusted Him, they wouldn't have that reaction to the folks that came in at the end.
I mean, that's what you're talking about too. To factor something else into that, that's what I really love about Thomas Torrance, T.F. Torrance, is he is a he. His one of his main influences, I think anyone that's read Torrance would agree, is Athanasius, right? So he kind of gets this from Athanasius, but it's this idea. That's the reason why his 2-volume like work is called Atonement and Incarnation. It's because they're
Right.
one and the same act. Like the whole point is that you can't separate the atonement and incarnation. That it's not just about the cross. That the cross is the culmination of it, but
Right. Yeah.
the entire act from incarnation to atonement is one act. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's the reason why I bring that up is because you were talking about it's not just in the cross, but it's
Yeah.
the whole teaching. It's the whole life like that. The whole thing is about trust, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it does culminate at the cross, though, I
you're right.
think. And but yeah, everything he does in his life, because if we're gonna if we believe that Jesus is the Jesus of the gospel narrative, if we believe that he lived this life, that a perfect life for us on our behalf, then we would believe that he always walked in that trust. So like he lived a perfect human life, always in that trust, always in that close communion. There was no separation in him. But then also, I was thinking about on the cross when he, the my God, why have you forsaken me? The I was thinking about that and like if you can, like, if you look at all of the accounts of him on the cross, his last words, depending on which one you're reading,
Right.
is Father, into your hands I commend my spirit.
Right.
And so the my God, why have you forsaken me is not the last word. But he takes it upon himself. Like I think beginning in the garden and culminating at the cross, he's taking that live separation upon himself.
Right. See, that's what my mind was going to. That's why I actually, like, I know that you don't necessarily agree with me because we've talked about this before, but that's why I don't like it when people try to gloss over that whole Garden of Gethsemane prayer. If there was any other way for this cup to pass, like, I don't like it when people try to explain that in a way, like, well, nah, Jesus wasn't really. No, like, to me, I that's what makes the story what it is
Yeah.
because that is a demonstration of that trust. In that moment, to me, he's saying, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want this to happen. If there was any other way for this to happen,
Right.
please, I'm begging, any other way.
Yeah.
But if there is no other way, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
And he went through with it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that there's no greater trust than that.
Yeah.
Like, if to at least that's the way my mind works. It speaks to me in a trust of saying, like, this is the last thing I want to do. I do not want to go through this. If there is any other way, please, let's do it another way. But if there's no other way,
Yeah.
I trust.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And I think that there's lots of good ways to read that. Um, what's going on in the garden there. One thing I heard Baxter actually say before is that it wasn't that Jesus was afraid to die. It's not that he's trying to avoid death. It's that he doesn't want to experience our experience of separation. That that what he experiences on the cross and it begins in the garden and culminates on the cross. That whenever he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He has at that moment fully taken upon himself the delusion of the depths of our delusion of separation and the depths of our distrust of God. Whatever that lie, whatever that original thing was that made us distrust God and think that we couldn't trust him, that he wasn't, maybe he's holding out on us, or like there's, like, he takes that upon himself and feels every freaking bit of it in that moment.
Yeah.
Even though it's not true, he was never abandoned.
Right.
He experiences it because he takes upon himself our experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me, it's the same sort of experience of like someone who's went through something traumatic and prayed, God, heal this this my loved one. Heal this. I believe that you can heal him. Heal him. And then that person passes away.
Yeah,
The reaction is what? Where, my God, why have you forsaken me?
exactly.
Where were you? Where were you? When I called out and I needed you, where were you?
Right.
So that sort of, to me, what Jesus is experiencing on the cross there, it's that feeling. It's that I believed in you and I called out to you and you failed me.
Yeah. Yeah. He takes all of that
Yeah.
on himself. And that's part of, again, that's part of how he atones, but that's also going back to the problem of evil. Like, part of the reason that I can live with the problem, even though it's a real problem, is that the countless of number of horrors of people who have said that, God, where are you? Where were you when this horrific thing happened to me? Where were you? We can look at Jesus crucified on the cross and we can say, there he is. That's where he was. He was in you. Christ is in all, right? He suffers with those who suffer. He's always there, present in you and around you, suffering with you and as you. And and he demonstrates that for us perfectly at the cross. And he takes upon that lie that we can't trust God. And just like everything else that he does, I'm fully convinced that everything that happens in Jesus' life is done for the sake of the other. It's done for our sakes. It's done for our good. He's living a perfect life on our behalf, including that moment, because again, it doesn't stop there. If you read Psalm 22 to get to the end, you find out that he wasn't forsaken, and you find out that what he came to accomplish is accomplished, which is the salvation of everybody, by the way. That's what Psalm 22 seems to say. And, but again, he says, even in that moment where we fail and we think God really is away, God really is separate from us, he still says, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. I trust you, in other words. Even though I'm in the worst experience of a felt separation, even though everything inside of my humanity is saying, you've left me, you've abandoned me, you don't love me anymore, you don't care about me. Everything in my humanity is saying that. I know that it's a lie, and I trust you, and I commit my spirit to you. I give myself entirely over to you, withholding nothing, because I know that you're good and I can trust you. And this is what I looked like at work when I was thinking about all this. But man, I don't know. It touches everything though. I really do think that it's at the root of almost every one of our issues. The root of all of the works of the flesh and the sin, all of it, I think in one way or another comes back down to like we don't trust God.
Which ultimately is that not faith
Yeah,
to a degree?
I'm really snotty now.
I know I need you to not stop to not get snot on our microphones. But yeah,
We ought to start keeping Kleenexes down here. I don't know why we haven't already.
don't put this on we. I've literally never cried.
Yeah.
I have,
I'm pretty sure I've seen you get emotional.
I have a heart of stone. I'm incapable of crying,
Yeah.
or incapable, not incapable. I'm
Yeah.
incapable of crying.
Anyway, I was, I was speaking to myself in spiritual
Yeah,
songs and stuff, singing, making melody in my heart. Right. I was preaching to myself.
you're just making something in your heart, all right?
Yeah. And, that's not uh that's not penal substitution, but dadgummit, that's atonement.
Yeah,
That's at one minute. That is him bringing us at one, you know, through himself.
yeah, demonstrating the oneness.
Yeah.
To me, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it, demonstrating the oneness that God is. Even when our lived experience is that of despair and estrangement, God is not separated. I mean, I think in a literal sense, like it's impossible to me. That's
Right.
that's that would cease to be a human being. That would cease. You would cease to exist. So it's literally impossible to be apart from God, in my view. That
Yeah.
is annihilation. So even when we can't feel it, we don't see it, we don't understand it. Which, I mean, that's why I was relating that whole faith and trust thing, because that's what faith is: the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Like, even when we don't see it, trust it, that's faith.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
and ultimately, what else can you do? What are you going to do about it?
I don't know. I guess you could just throw
Just live in despair
Yeah.
or trust? I mean,
Yeah. Some people will choose despair.
yeah, yeah,
Some people will choose to just pour their life into their work or trying to seek fulfillment and other things.
right.
I think all of that ends up leaving you empty in the end, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's Jesus talks about it in the Gospels,
Yeah.
talks about that very thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. But yeah, I really do think that that it touches everything. I haven't thought all the way through it yet, but everything that I have thought of, that things that we call sin, or, you know, I think in one way or another, they all come back to that distrust.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you can trace it to the fall or whatever,
Right. Yeah.
the original sin. Like if that's what it's rooted in, and that's right. You never treat the symptoms, or I mean, I guess you can, but it's not gonna be very effective.
Right.
You don't treat the symptoms; you treat the root cause of it.
Hmm.
Cut the sickness out at its roots. So
Yeah.
yeah, I believe. Lord, help my unbelief.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it really would, and it would rock our worlds if we would just, if we could, if we could actually do it, if we could actually just trust him, it would change everything. We wouldn't, me and you probably wouldn't have as many arguments if I just trusted God more. I wouldn't worry about you as much as I do
Well,
if I trusted God more.
yeah. I mean, likewise, I probably wouldn't have as many imaginary arguments with you in my morning runs as I do.
Yeah.
That would be the distinction between my inner monologue and yours, I guess. Is usually I'm not talking to myself. I'm having conversations with you or someone else, other people, whatever,
Yeah.
depending on whatever topic it is. But
Well, I say myself, but it's more
yeah.
stuff like that. So,
But yeah, and ultimately, that's sort of not that I do a perfect job by any means. Let me throw that out there. By any means, not even remotely close to trusting God at all times. But I mean, that's ultimately what I believe about it. Like, if you want to know my eschatology, that's what it is. I don't know, but just trust. Like, that's why the whole when we were talking, which again, I'm not an open and necessarily, I don't consider myself an open and relational theologian. I think that only works if you can conceive of God as a being. But when we were talking about that, and that was sort of part of the whole thing of like, well, if the whole future's opened, it's not, if God doesn't know the future because it hasn't happened yet and it hasn't played out yet. It's open. Well, then how do we know it's going to turn out good? Well, like, it's trust. Like, that's, if there's anything I trust, it's that. All the rest of it, I have very little trust in at times. But if there's one thing I do trust, it's that it's going to work out. I don't know how.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that seems to, if I mean, I guess you have to believe God is good, but I do. I mean, I'm to the point in my life where I either believe God is good or there is no God.
Right. Either God doesn't exist or he is good.
That's what I was thinking when you were talking about the fear of some of the Old Testament readings of like what some of us are afraid. And I agree with you. I do think people are afraid of what if that Old Testament version, that flat, literal, wrathful,
Hmm.
God is the real God. And like, I think that is true for some people, but it's not true for me, because it's, if you want me to believe that God, I'm more likely to just be an atheist. I just don't believe God exists at all. God is either good or there is no God, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
So
And man, he's way better. God's so much better than we can imagine, which is an obvious statement. But I was just thinking because like I pulled up the scripture and it reminded me of something else I was thinking about, which is like the idea of God's sovereignty, which always comes up with that problem of evil. It's something else I was thinking about the other day, is like the idea of God's power and sovereignty, and because this mentioned dominion.
the word sovereignty is so pompous.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. I'm so sovereign. So pompous.
Yeah. Our entire idea of power is just so upside down, and
Yeah.
we try to we try to impose that onto the scriptures and onto God, and say that this is what God's power looks like. But when what God's power actually looks like, his throne, his kingdom, what it actually looks like is a man being spit on and mocked and being stripped naked and beaten, humiliated and murdered. That's what real power and sovereignty looks like.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, and that's how he reigns, quote unquote. We don't have categories for that. We can't understand that. But that's what God's sovereignty looks like. It has to be because that's what Jesus did. Like he told the sons of thunder, you guys don't know what you're asking for about coming in, like sitting at my right and left when you come into the kingdom.
Right.
Yeah, can you drink this cup that I'm about to drink?
Because he had people to his right and left
Yeah.
hanging from crosses.
Mhm. Couple 1-2 thieves. I heard Damon say something. I was listening to some of his preaching today, Damon Thompson, and he was talking about politics actually, and he said the Jesus is the one at the center. The what you got on the right and left are both thieves.
Yeah. That'll preach.
Yeah. So I thought that was really good. But yeah, that Jesus's God's sovereignty and power and dominion don't look like what we imagine they look like. It looks like self-sacrificial love, but man, that is the greatest power in the universe, apparently.
Yeah.
And that is how he reigns.
Which is foolishness, as it's worded in
Yeah.
Scripture. To some, it appears as foolishness. To the Gentiles, I think is how it's written in Romans. So,
Stumbling block to the Jew and foolishness to the Gentile.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I did want to read. I kind of wanted to read this, the end of Psalm 22 there.
Do it.
Uh, Psalm 22 and I'll start in 24. For he did not despise or abhor the affliction of the afflicted. He did not hide his face from me, but heard when I cried to him. From you comes my praise. In the great congregation, my vows I will pay before those who fear him. The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. Verse 27. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before him. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. To him indeed shall all who sleep in the earth bow down. Before him shall bow all who go down to the dust, and I shall live for him. Posterity will serve him, future generations will be told about the Lord, and proclaim his deliverance to a people yet unborn, saying that he has done it. It is finished. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before him. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. Everyone will bow, everyone will worship, because he has dominion and rules. But what are we just talking about with dominion and ruling over the nations? He says, my kingdom's not like the kingdoms of this world. And he tells them, you aren't to rule over, to lord over people
Right.
the way that the earthly kingdoms do, but the earthly rulers do. You're supposed to, he said, I came to serve and not be served. That is how you rule
Right.
and reign. Self-sacrificial love, self-giving love, service to the other. Not through force or coercion. That's why whenever the scripture talks about all people bowing, it can't be a forced thing because God is love and love doesn't force itself on anyone.
Right. Which is so ironic that that's the way that verse was always taught
I know.
to me.
How can God be love but
One
force
day,
himself on you?
buddy, your knee will bow.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's will willingly.
Yeah. Because again, that self-sacrificial love displayed to perfection on the cross by Jesus, that is the greatest power in the world. And he said, when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people to myself. That is why everyone will bow. Not because God is this power hungry, egotistical, like, I demand glory, even if it means a boot to your neck. No, man. It's because God revealed himself in Jesus. And self sacrificial love is the greatest power in the world. And why wouldn't you willingly give your praise and worship because of that? Of course you will. Go ahead, do it now. Be reconciled, as 2 Corinthians 5 says. So, which brings up another topic we had talked about talking about at some point. I don't think we got time right now, but worship.
We've talked about talking about it. Yeah, that one's one. I haven't had a lot of topics on my mind, but that one's been on my mind more so just on Sunday
Yeah.
because it was church day. We were at church.
Yeah.
Monday, I guess I let it eat at me a little bit more, but after that, I just dropped it.
Sometimes you just, that's how it goes. Something will bother you, and then you just kind of like,
I
it's
mean,
gone now.
yeah, it's more or less just you quit thinking about it. You know, your mind
Yep.
gets on other stuff, and you're like, I mean, I'm sure if I started thinking about it again, I would have a lot of similar things come up, but
Yeah. I think we have talked about it at some point,
I think so too, a little bit. Which
but
just like anything, my thoughts on it evolve.
yeah.
They're constantly evolving, really. That on that topic, especially. And I'm at a different place now with it than I've ever been, really. But maybe just further in the direction I was already trending. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got, yeah. I mean, we can do a whole episode on it, I guess, at some point. I've got a lot of thoughts on it,
yeah,
really.
yeah, we might as well save that for a big one.
Yeah.
That'll be a whole episode thing. But
Well, Duder, you got anything else you want to say on this one?
nah.
I know we didn't spend a ton of time exegeting or whatever the parable, but we
Well,
said what I kind of wanted to
if they're
say.
coming to us for professional exegesis, then you're coming to the wrong place. Now we can give you an exegesis, but
Depending on who you're talking to, we're doing more eisegesis than exegesis. But
aren't we all?
on that, we're going to leave it on that note.
Bye.